Continue, Jake. The tribe has spoken.
Fuck you, Kevin.
Aw, fuck you too, sweetie.
I'm JJ, one of the original Tribe of Nerds members. You can catch me on Marvel, Pokemon, and other gaming podcasts.
What up? It's Josh, resident superhero nerd, but I also dabble in the occasional super villain as well.
Some may know me as the Chaos Gremlin, but really I'm just Joe King.
Pikachu, use Volt Tackle! Good job, Pikachu!
On the Tribe of Nerds.
Jake is so stressed.
What the heck just happened?
Trying to kill that man.
Somebody else is going to drown on the beach while everyone watches.
Yeah, nobody helps.
Ooh.
You speak.
Ooh.
Yes. But you speak English.
I'd love to know how Jack has such perfect stubble.
Yeah.
Another mystery of the island.
I found this in the wreckage, and I figured, hey, why let a $20,000 watch go to waste? Which is ridiculous, since time doesn't matter on a damn island.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tribe of Nerds. We're here for the 6th episode of Lost, so very excited to talk about this one and continue where we left off. So Kevin, Kristin, Michael, and I are here to talk about it. So what do you guys got?
Well, Michael's gonna do his you gotta kick it off, Michael.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now, it's got to the point now where I know I'm going to get thrown to first, so I'm desperately trying to find something to say other than... Guess how many million people turned up, Jake? It was 16.8 this week. There we go. That's what everyone came to see.
Imagine if you're getting 16 million viewers now.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Be like the biggest show ever. There's only like a handful of shows that ever get anywhere near that now, like a Game of Thrones or something like that. Another thing that I have is Jin Kim, who plays Sun, originally auditioned to be Kate in the show, and the casting directors really liked her, so they actually made this character of Sun specifically for her because they wanted her to be in the show, but she wasn't right for Kate. So that's how we got the character of Sun. And also, we talked about Jack dangling off a cliff for his ass. We also get Dominic Monaghan, really had bees on his face in that bee scene. He's working with male drone bees, and he really enjoyed it because he's a big animal lover. He even had like an animal show after his time on Lost. So unfortunately that didn't last, because on the escape scene we then got the shitty CGI bees, which is the first example of CGI in this show, which wasn't great, but the majority of the show looks good.
They were doing a lot of practical things, and they didn't really know what they were doing with CGI, and that's okay. They tried their best.
They spent a lot of money on the first
They make up
episode.
for it in other ways.
It was, what, 2004?
Four.
Four? It was 20 years ago. What did you want?
I'm just saying.
That's great bees. You know how realistic those bees looked 20 years ago?
No, we mentioned it in 2004 as well.
All right. Any other fun facts that you want to tell us, Michael, or are we moving right into this episode?
That's all I had.
All right. So House of the Rising Sun. I will start off by saying that I've now got my son watching Lost, and this kid bawled his eyes out at the end of this episode. And when I say bawled, y'all, he was like full on ugly crying, which you can't ugly cry when you're a kid because like you're adorable, but like full on ball fest. So a lot of emotion going into this. Of course, we get our first Jin and Sun flashback, kind of their story, but that's not where we start. Obviously, we're starting off She's just having a nice peaceful moment on the beach. You got Jin out there doing his fishing thing. You got Kate and Jack shamelessly flirting in front of everybody, like, oh, let me pet your tattoos. I love Charlie's line here of like,
you've
oh,
got an
you guys have
inside joke.
Yeah, it's like my favorite part. But they're of course getting ready to. We know from the last episode, Jack had found the caves with the fresh water, so they're going to get some water for everybody on the beach. Of course, everybody else is off doing their own thing here. Charlie and them, it's going to be Charlie, Locke, Kate, and Jack that are going off to get the fresh water. I also love Charlie has a good line about Locke, like the great white hunter is getting restless. It's like he's coming for Sawyer's spot, y'all, on these like one-liners in this episode.
So good.
Is great. But yeah, so they get to the caves. Obviously, lots of things go down there in those caves as they get to the fresh water. Charlie, of course, sneaks off to get his little like fixie fix, but finds himself on a beehive where Michael mentioned that he did have the bees on his face. Of course, he panics and splits the hive, sending Locke and Charlie one way, Kate and Jack the other. Kate's getting naked, boobies everywhere, flying
ripping
off.
clothes off for no reason. The two of them, just like, oh no.
I'm telling you, the sexual tension in this episode, y'all. It's like they have to do something for each other. But anyway,
no reason.
Zero
it does lead to Charlie having one of the funniest lines of the entire show, where Kate says it was full of bees, referring to a top, and he says, "I'd have guessed C's."
Right, talking about her breast
size.
Such a good joke. Again, like I said, Charlie coming for the one-liners. He's taking Sawyer's spot on here. But obviously, we see that there was some skeletons here. They're trying to figure out, oh, okay, but they lived here. So Jack starts getting those wheels a-turning, and then wants to bring the idea of presenting people to kind of move into the caves. And then, of course, back on the beach, we have a whole nother issue going on. Out of nowhere, poor Sun's over there having her nice little, what she would have had her morning coffee and like breathing hypnosis time, and Jin just ruins that by stepping on her plants that she's working on. He takes off to the ocean and continuously just bashes Michael in. Out of nowhere, he's beating him up, trying to drown him in the ocean. Another one of my favorite moments of my kid watching this, he's like, why doesn't somebody tackle him? And literally not even 2 seconds later, here comes Saeed to just full on tackle him.
A spear.
Raise your tiny hand if you were a little worried for Michael.
No worries.
I'll raise my normal hand. Can we pause there and just
that's where I was gonna pause. So Sawyer and Saeed come rescue Michael, handcuff Jin to some piece of the plane, and that's where I wanted to pause for this little first block of the episode.
Because I was curious, Jake, about going back to the caves. We do find those skeletons. So Jack says they've been there at least 50 years for the clothing to decompose like that. And we also get little white and black rocks in a little satchel there. Our very own Adam and Eve, as Locke says. So what were your thoughts on that whole mystery?
Well, clearly the white and black rocks are going to mean something. It's kind of like a yin and yang kind of thing. I mean, that's what it symbolizes, I feel like. So I feel like it could have something to do with that. And interested in an episode that is showing Asian culture. So like, I thought there was some great symbolism in that for this episode.
We also get Charlie slipping up there with Locke, where he's like, "Oh, are these the people that were here before us?" And Locke's like, "Excuse me," because they're obviously lying about not telling people about the French transmission. Yes. So Locke now clearly knows there was people here before them, and they're not doing well.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, I see kind of when I'm watching this for the first time, and even just in the rewatch, I get where, like, this is kind of where we're coming into it, and we're going to talk about it later, because Saeed, we're going to get to the divide a little bit later on in the episode, but, like, I get where Jack is saying this, but they're a week into this. Like, granted, yes, a week is a long time. There should have been a rescue at this point, but also it's so early enough that I understand why people are, like, not really going to feel good about this decision. And so Jack I think the part about Jack just kind of gun-hoing about this, not realizing that people are not. I think he thought this was such a great decision, and he is now kind of become their leader here. I think a leader would have been like, we might have some people like that are not okay with this, but he was just shocked to think until later on. Obviously, him and Kate have a discussion about it, but like, I don't think he was prepared for that. And I'm like, you're a doctor. You should be preparing for all different kinds of scenarios that are going to happen here, Jack. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I mentioned the sexual tension between him and Kate. We're getting more of that, like this little flirtatious thing going on. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see their relationship building in a more romantic way, all the while he's trying to like be this leader of all these people. And then you have like Locke and Charlie over here just like living their life. Like he's over here like trying to not be on beehives, and Locke's over here being his mysterious Locke. So it's an interesting, again, another four that kind of don't seem like they're going to fit together, and here they are fitting together. So
I always felt like there was something between Saeed and Kate at this point. Like they're always together, and Saeed's a very stable and strong guy. I always like their little interactions. And yeah, I agree, Kristen, that I don't think Jack even considered that this was going to be a contentious issue. And you have that great scene between Saeed and Jack where Saeed's like, wait, what? You're moving us all to the caves? Why didn't you tell us this? And I think what's great about this whole debate is they both have really solid points.
Yeah, 100%.
This is why I'm such a Jack, because I would have been like, oh yeah, the water's here, let's just go there. Like, what do you mean? You guys want to stay at the beach? That's dumb.
Where would you guys stay? So Kevin's going to the...
I'm going to the caves.
I'm going to the caves.
Yeah, I'm going to the caves as well.
I mean, sadly, I have to go to the caves with Kevin, but like I am going to, because I do not do heat. As much as I love like strolling on a beach looking for seashells, like I've done it for a week. We're good. I found the seashells. It's time to go get cooled off.
But it's like, it's the water. Like I drink water all day long. Like I just refill this all day. Like I need the water. What am I going to do? Sit on the beach and just be like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to go walk again.
Yeah.
I would have thought you would have sat on the beach being like, somebody serve me. I need my water.
I like
in that exact voice. I just like hold out my tiny hand, like there's no water in here for me.
I view you as a Shannon. Like you're just like, somebody give me water.
I'm staying on the beach.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy because I view you as a
Shannon. Michael's like, I'm staying on the beach with Shannon. What? Because she doesn't do anything.
No, because look at it. And after all this talk for 5 episodes, Kristen, about how much you're in love with Sawyer, you're leaving him to go to the caves. Terrible.
We can make special time. I will walk and do some special times with Sawyer. We'll have our special Sawyer Kristin time, which is going to happen next weekend. Yay for me. And then I'm going back to the cave to cool off. But also like going back to this main thing also, I feel like this is even the bigger thing, and obviously what gets us into our flashbacks and thing. Jin out of nowhere attacking Michael. We have no idea what's happening here. Jake, where were you going in this moment? Like, I know Michael brings up people like him don't like people like me, kind of insinuating the racial thing there between, an Asian culture versus the African American culture here. So what were your thoughts, Jake, going into seeing just out of nowhere Jin attacking Michael?
Yeah, I was stressed. You guys said it on the recap. I was like, what just happened? And at first I thought it was because he found out that Michael came up on sun changing or bathing. Like, I was just like, oh, okay. So
because he saw the movies.
Yeah, poor Michael. Getting punished for accidentally seeing something. So I was not sure about that, and then later to find out, as we'll talk about, ends up being because he accidentally stole Jin's watch, but which is very important to Jin's ties to family and culture and all that. So
yeah,
it's such a brutal attack as well.
Yeah.
Like you proper like spears him from behind and like tackles him into the water. And it goes on for so long before luckily Saeed and Sawyer come in and play hero and separate it up. I love that we get Saeed as like a bit of a sheriff in this episode, like a detective working out what's going on. I would also like to say, when you mentioned Michael talking about the racial tension between them, that was character Michael, not this Michael.
Yes, sorry. It also, I mean, the thing about this too is like, I don't know why this is a thing. We said this when we were watching it. Why are you the only 2 people on this entire beach that are just like, and then not only fine, like if you guys don't want to get involved and like stop it, fine. They've now broken up the fight. You see Saeed struggling to keep Jin away from him. No one goes and says, hey, Sawyer, here, let me help wounded Michael off, and you help Saeed, because I'm not getting near that crazy dude. But no, again, he just like drops Michael on the beach to go give the handcuffs and help him. It's just like one of these things that just like, you can again see that these people have no idea who they are, and they're not there willing to help each other yet at this point. I think is a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked Sawyer this episode. So again, more one-liners, and that man has a lot of riz, as Ryan Wayne would say. Just taking off the sunglasses, like it's all he has to do this episode, and just be like, "Oh yeah, it's Sawyer." But yeah, I mean, I did really like him this episode. Where at the beginning I wasn't the biggest Sawyer fan in the first couple episodes.
You have no choice. You have no
over
choice,
to the
Jake.
right side, Jake.
No
Come on
choice.
over.
Yeah.
You're eventually the walls are going to be broken down.
But
I just like on Sawyer as well. Like he's just such a stir. It's pretty much the same situation in that scene with him and Kate as the scene with the marshal, where he's just like, well, I wouldn't want to be in your position right now, being the one with that gun. And now he's talking to Kate about the pros and cons of the caves or the beach. He likes to get in there and just stir up the pot a little bit, and then he just leaves.
He just leaves. I love it. I love that man. So going into our flashbacks, where we're getting kind of a breakdown into Jin and Sun's story here, we see that Sun is at a party. She is served a glass of champagne. She, gives a smile, and then the server walks away. And as we see in the background and looks back at her, it is Jin. So then later on, she's sitting off by herself, and he's like, Miss, you forgot something. She's like, oh, what did I forget, handsome stranger? And then he's like, this, and he plants a big old kiss on her. So now we're like, oh, Sun's kissing on the help. And she's like, oh, but my dad's here. Oops, let's hold on. And just kind of seeing that they had this kind of secret romance, if you will, the rich girl and the help kind of situation. And then of course later on you see that he goes to ask her dad to marry her. She's like, there's no way dad is gonna approve this one, but good for you. And he comes out and he's like, nope. He said, yes, here's this giant rock that I could not afford, but now I can, because guess what, I'm working for daddy. So you kind of start to see where this storyline is going for Jin and Sun. Jake, what was your reaction to kind of seeing this love that we haven't really seen on the island yet? We're seeing just them so infatuated with each other. We're not seeing Jin being like, button up your shirt. She's wearing like a whole revealing dress. So what were your first reactions to seeing this backstory with Jin and Sun?
It was very, very interesting to see where they came from, and kind of actually them having a romantic moment, as opposed to what we've seen so far. And we've just been seeing that very, I'm trying to think of the word, not romantic side of Jin so far. So yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. And then, we find out, he murders people for her dad. So like a hitman or assassin type. So
Potentially murders. Maybe you just give him a good beating.
Maybe he just beats him up really bad. Maybe he just
maybe he cut his hand walking.
Listen, I'm not on the jury. I can't decide these things.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up a good. I mean, you do see that now, in another flashback, you see that he is working a lot harder. He's not really around. Of course, Sun doesn't understand this. He brings her the cutest little puppy ever.
Yes.
Love that baby puppy. Anytime there's a dog, I'm there. I'm all in.
Right.
But he just, again, this kind of, he's still doting on her. There's still that love, but it's starting to get a little bit more distant. And then of course in that final flashback, we see that he comes in and he's wiping blood, and he's like, I do this for us. And she slaps the crap out of him. I mean, so we're really seeing a very different relationship that we've seen on this island, where they're kind of reversing roles a little bit here. Because on the island, there's no way Sun be slapping Jin on the island. She's very submissive to him. He would never have taken that. He would have we just saw him nearly kill Michael. So it's kind of interesting to see the reversal of roles, if you will. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Jake, if you had any feelings on that moment of just seeing that her kind of being the dominant one in that relationship.
I thought it was good for her character, to actually see her stand up for herself finally, even if it was in that flashback. And like we see her even talking to her friend or her friend was like a realtor or something. That's what it seemed like. So we saw her doing that and being like, okay, I'm gonna figure out a way to leave him, right? And so then it goes to the airport and I couldn't tell if they went together. It seemed like she was going to leave him there, right? And then she decided to go with him on the flight.
And now look where she is.
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Right. You should have just walked off, girlfriend. No.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, there was a whole plan. Obviously, she is not happy in this moment anymore. She can't just get divorced because obviously daddy's very powerful. And so with that, she makes this whole plan. They were going on this trip to Australia. I'm assuming for work here for Jin. So they go on this trip, or maybe it was a vacation. But then at that moment in Australia, you are leaving him because then you can come up with they'll think you've been kidnapped. Then they'll think that you've died. That's when you can go do whatever you want. But like, this is what you're gonna do. But this is where my son starts crying. Is that out of all of this crap that she's been dealing with for however long, he pulls out that flower that got her from the beginning, showing that he still loves her, and that love is so deep and pure. Even though we're dealing with some crap, and she's like, you know what? No, I'm staying. And then of course, like, look at where they're at now.
I mean, it's such a tragic relationship, and I love that over the course of this episode in the flashbacks, you see Jin changing, and it's like the first flashback, he's so smiley and happy, he's just this nice, sweet guy, and then, but I like that you can also track it by the growth of the dog. So, like when we see the dog growing up, and then all of a sudden he's on the couch miserable. He's like, "Get this dog away from me!" And we don't know exactly what it is that he's doing for Jin's father, but it's certainly something very stressful and probably not legal. And yeah, he had all the right intentions in trying to get her father's approval and ask for a hand in marriage, and he gets this job, and now he's got money and he can help, and it just turns him into this cold person and completely disintegrates that relationship. So it's such a tragic story in a way. And yeah, like the fact that she almost avoided this plane crash, but she came back to him in the end. It's just such a sad story. And Yunjin Kim, that performance when she's in the airport, like weighing up what she's gonna do, like the performances on the show are so good, and like she told everything that needed to be told without a single word.
Right. Just like I mean, the expression on her face, just you see the turmoil that's going. She loves this man. This is the man of her dreams. Like, they were so happy, but gosh, he's so horrible. Like, it's not where she wants to be, and just the tears streaming down her face of like
when she forces that smile, like, oh, son, you killed me.
And the perfect like two tears at the exact same time.
Right.
Yes.
How do you
Listen,
do that?
I can make myself fake cry. I've learned this in orcs. I can make myself fake cry. However, not both eyes at the same exact time. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Cinematic.
Yeah.
This is cinema.
For sure. I mean, it just, again, we'll say this, I'm sure, continuously throughout the series, but we've said it so many times in the past. Everybody's acting is completely just on point. The way that Lost tells a story too is like just like chef's kiss. Like, it's just beautiful in the way that they're presenting all of this to us just 6 episodes in. So
I mean, this is jumping like way back, but when they were filming the pilot, they had that scene where the polar bear attacks Sawyer, and they had this big like toy polar bear that they threw at the camera, and Damon Lindelof was sat there and he was like, "This is never going to work. This show is just ridiculous." And he said what made it work was when he saw how much the actors bought into it and tread it like sincerely, and they made it not ridiculous by their performances. And this is a fantastical show, but it's so grounded in the characters that you don't really mind when it goes all crazy because you've got something that you can be rooted in.
Yeah, that's true, because there's been a lot of other shows that try to be like Lost.
So many, yeah.
But can't. And like, because you don't have this cast.
yeah, no, for sure. It's a phenomenal cast. So speaking back to the cast, obviously now Jack has got this brilliant plan. He tells Kate, she's again this sexual tension, like you can cut it with it's so thick. She's like, you check.
Oh my god, the bees!
He's like,
The bees have to take
no.
their clothes off.
This is my favorite part that Jack is such a dude in this moment. She's like, you checking me out? He's like, if I was checking you out, you'd know. And she's like, so what are you thinking about then? Like, what do you think? Like, she's all hoping, and he's like, I'm thinking if we do this like well thing, then we get this water, then we get this. And she's like, oh, we're actually not talking about. Okay, good talk, Jack.
The will they or won't they?
Yeah, right.
Well, this episode anyway.
And so it's just kind of, this is where you start to see really more of Jack's plan. He's really planning this thing out. He's already like drawn up blueprints for this apartment complex. So she clearly says like, you haven't convinced me yet. And I love this moment because we see it where we're heading is he looks back at her like, wait, I just like the sexual tension here. I thought that just meant we were like, we're good. What? Like he kind of, if you see in that facial expression right there, he realizes, oh crap. Like if she's not like on board with this, I might have an issue. So then of course we stumble upon Saeed. This is where Michael, you brought up Saeed's like, how are you gonna go make a whole nother civilization? Didn't even consult us. Like, what are you doing? But also he brings up kind of, he's told obviously the story. I'm gonna let him sit in the sun a little bit while longer, try and communicate. And this is a big thing because we're leading up to this. He says, I'm gonna try and communicate with his wife, figure out what's going on. Jack's like, you want me to help? He's like, no, you're worried about a civilization. Let me handle this. I've got this on the beach.
I love that when Jack asks Saeed that, he just kind of gives him a look like, you don't know who you're talking to. I got this.
Republican Guard, dude. Like, you know. So, yeah. But I also, it's kind of again where we're seeing this. First of all, it kind of seemed like Jack and Boone, but of course Boone is now mad and he's gone off. But now here we've got Saeed and him. Saeed's kind of, this is where I will start referring in this moment is Saeed is beach daddy, and then we have Jack who is our cave daddy. And so the two of them are having their first fight as trying to take care of their children. And so we're gonna this is where we're at with these two. Of course they go onto the beach. And Jack, you see, I mean, even in a little clip off to the side, he's talking to people. This is where, oh, bless that man Sawyer comes in looking how he looks. God, I can't wait for next weekend, y'all. Can I just tell you? But he's in there with Kate, like, where are you going to go on this side? Because I think a lot of people are going to be looking at you. And then she goes, well, where are you going to go? And he's like, I asked first. Well, yes, you did, sir. Let me just tell you, I can do a lot of things for you first. But here we are. Kate still seeing that she's kind of having this turmoil. Like, I really am enjoying my time with Jack, but I'm not ready to give up. But also we know Kate's backstory. Like, if a rescue, like, they're just worried about rescuing and get you on the boat and then she can take off, things like that. We already know from her backstory and things like that. And then we get to where Jack's giving Jin some water, just a little, like, again, attention to the details that Lost just puts in here is like, he's like, here you go, a little bit, like, walking off. And then we see where they kind of start to separate here, where these groups are going to start to form. And so with that, I think that this is a moment to see who is not ready to give up yet on this situation, which I find this group that we end up seeing staying behind, not the group that I thought would have been staying behind. Obviously, Sawyer probably would have stayed behind. Saeed's very adamant he's staying behind. But then in these, like, this little clip, you're seeing Shannon, of course, that she can't walk 2 feet, let alone walk to a cave. But, like, you know what I mean? There's other people here that I don't necessarily think that we would have seen. We don't know, well, obviously, they're all their backstories yet. But it's an interesting group. I love, there's a moment when everybody's packing up. Hurley's like, I go where the boar is, dude. Like, he's all about the water and the food. But it's interesting to see the different thought processes, which is why I wanted to bring it up, of each individual person. They're all going to have like, Hurley's worried about where the food and water is. Jack's like, all right, we gotta buckle down here, you know? And then you have Saeed that's like, it's only been 8 days, bro. What are you doing? So Jake, walk me through, like, we kind of already talked on this a little bit. Where's your head at in this? This is a huge decision. Like, do we give up on a rescue? Do we go to a cave? And what would be your criteria for making that decision? Because a lot of them have different things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like going to a cave is at this point, like, just making sure you have water and stuff to survive on, because you don't know when a rescue is coming, and that's still being figured out with the transceiver. I think So I definitely think going to the cave and getting water for everybody is probably the best decision to make right now. So that's where I stand.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting because there are certain characters here that know that from speaking to the pilot, Jack knows that the plane was 1,000 miles off course. I think Jack has just accepted, like, we ain't getting rescued. It's not happening. He doesn't want to bring that up to everyone, but he's thinking about the long term. And then you also have characters like Sawyer, Charlie, who else was there? Saeed, Shannon, who know about the French transmission and that someone else was here for 16 years, and we're not really confident that they got found either. So I think there's more people being willing to make a life here for themselves and just make the best of it because they're not expecting, rescue at any second anymore. And then you have like a bunch of other people that don't know all this information. Our, 38 survivors that we haven't focused on from this crash yet. Just like, well, I'm just going to wait for rescue.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then, I mean, this brings us to, like, you brought up Charlie. We have to bring up, this is also another side story that's being told here. Of course, you have Jack over there being Jack's brilliant leader self, but not finding any goodness coming from that. But we leave Locke and Charlie back at the caves to sort through some of these things. But then, of course, Locke being Locke knows that Charlie's doing something. He's caught him on the beehive. Now he's trying to go into the loo. Like, bro, like, let me have some space. And he's like, I'm going to be on you. Like, no, like, you're not leaving my sight. There's dangerous things in the jungle, but all we really know is that he knows what Charlie's trying to go and do. Charlie does actually exit the caves, and where did he come from? Where did this bro pop up? He like is right here, and he goes,
Island
Charlie,
Gandalf.
right? But he goes, Charlie, I know the gig is up. I'm aware, and he's like, what are you talking about? I was trying to go to the bathroom. Like, what's up? And he's like, you're going to run out. So now he's like, we now realize that Locke is on to him. And so with that, he's like, just make it on your accord because you're going to run out. You're going to start going through withdrawal. Make this be your decision so that you have a handle on this. And he obviously, they were talking about, he's like, I know you were in Drive Shaft and your first album was better than your second album. And of course, Charlie's like, oh, love me Drive Shaft, And he goes, how long has it been since you played your guitar? And he's, counting down the hours. He's so lost without his guitar. So he's like, give me your drugs and maybe we'll find your guitar. And he's like, never going to happen. And he's like, look up. And he's like, I'm not going to pray. And he's like, seriously, dude, like it was very general term, look up. And he looks up. Of course, we see his guitar. So happy Charlie now. He's forgotten about his drugs for the moment. And he's all about his guitar. But again, kind of a moment where I'm sure, Michael, you'll want to talk on that Locke's bringing up the island. And he's saying the island's going to give you something, but you have to give them something first. So, Michael, go for it.
Yes, this is again, like we talked about it in that scene with Jack and Locke in White Rabbit, where like Locke is this kind of mentor role and he just seems so at peace with himself. And we see that again here with Charlie, where, he just has such faith in the island. And it's like he knows something that everyone else doesn't. And he's saying, you need to give something to the island if you want something back in return. And he's speaking quite cryptically. I just think he has such like, I don't know, an enigmatic face. I just love watching him, and yeah, it's so good. I also love, by the way, Kevin and Jake, if you want to talk about that thing as well. But before we get to that, I'd just like to say, when Charlie finds out that Locke knows about Drive Shaft, he's like the most excited little kid. He literally
So
runs,
excited.
sits down. He sits down and like looks up at him like, oh my God, someone finally knows who I am. This is so exciting. Because no one else gives a damn that he was in Drive Shaft.
Yeah,
Well-
this was me when I found out other people actually watch Survivor. So, because I've been used to everybody asking, is that show still on, or not knowing what I'm talking about. So,
This is also our moment when somebody's like, I love Lost. You're like, yes, let's talk about it. But also, this is the first, I love that you bring that up, Michael, because this is the first person that has come to Charlie, I know Drive Shaft, where you've seen him and like somebody's like, have we met before? And he's like, oh, I'm a rock star. And they're like, no, there's something else. This is the first time he's actually getting the fan that he was hoping from everybody else. Like, and so I think that's where he gets so excited where he can sit down and do that. Anything else on Charlie and Locke before we get to kind of our ending and our big ta-da moment of the sun also rises?
Yeah, I think it's gonna keep getting, the breadcrumbs are gonna keep coming for like what this island is providing. Locke clearly did something for the guitar. I think I don't know that it was actually up there the entire time. So I'm interested to see how that ends up happening. So
I don't know. I talked about this last time. I don't like Locke, so I'm a Jack. I'm not a Locke. So I think he's stupid.
That's where we're gonna leave that. I think he's stupid. But that is where we're gonna leave it because this is the biggest moment of the episode. Obviously we have kind of forgotten now about this whole Michael and Jin thing because we've been focusing on other things. But we still have no idea. Why is Jin attacking Michael out of nowhere? Michael walks off into the jungle to chop some bamboo or whatever he's doing, not looking for boobies this time, but he is actually doing something to contribute. And
the amount of wood chopping in this episode is a little strange, by the way, especially for people.
There's a lot of it. There is a lot.
Who like have no water. Like this is very strange.
But also, what are we chopping the wood for? The fire, for shelter? Right. What are we doing here? But also, and don't you think we would be discussing this? Like, I'm gonna go chop the wood, but no, we've got like 5 other people chopping wood
in different areas.
I think Kevin brought this up, but Saeed's white like tank top is
perfectly white tank top,
and then Michael is like sweating through his shirt, and I'm just like, okay, Michael is actually more realistic because of that.
Listen, you gotta let Saeed have me the sweat. he's just perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Sun comes up to Michael and he goes, "Oh, glad you came to chat." Obviously, we know that they cannot communicate because they do not speak English. And he's like, "Listen, I don't know." She's like, "I have to tell you something." What? You speak English? It's the big reveal. Jake, where was your head at the moment that she said, "I have to tell you something" in English?
I mean, I feel like, I didn't expect that it was going to happen right at the end here, but I don't know. I felt like it made sense once it happened because, like, I don't know. I feel like we're learning more about these characters as we go, and we're going to get, we needed a way for Sun and Jin to be, or at least Sun right now, to be able to communicate more effectively with the other people, with the other characters. And I think this was like the best way to show that she can communicate with them. So I think it's going to be really interesting moving forward, how that comes into play, and if Jin is the same way, in that he can actually communicate with them too, and is also hiding that. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think the moment here, I think there's a couple of moments that I have to touch on. First of all, she tells Michael, like, why haven't you told us that you speak English? She's like, my husband doesn't know. He's got a bad temper. You think? He just tried to kill me in the ocean, woman. Like, I think I figured that one out. Mm-hmm. But also there was a moment where, she, of course, is trying to tend to him. He's being his, Jin self. And she's like, let me go try and, like, fix this. And he's like, no, how are you going to communicate? Like, we can't talk, So it's just kind of that moment where you can tell that she had been lying to him, obviously, because of his bad temper. That was blatantly obvious. But it's just kind of this moment where she realizes she has to save this man that she loves. And then, of course, that's where, when we're getting these flashbacks, we're seeing these things. But kind of, he came to her defense earlier, and now she's kind of coming to his. And it's just kind of that beautiful full circle moment of, yeah, he's a jackass, but I love him, and I'm going to save him.
He's my jackass.
He's my jackass. But then, of course, so Michael goes over to Jin. This is also my favorite moment here, is that Jin is like, I just killed you. I am this hardcore. And Michael shows up with all the rage, and he means business. And Jin is actually scared in this moment. Like, he's not, like we saw earlier when he's like probably cussing him out in Korean. Like, there's moments where he was not like, he's just tough, but he is fearful in this moment. Of course, we hear from Sun that it was because of the watch that he was wearing that he had found on the beach. She was saying it's about honor. It was my father's. He was supposed to protect that. He's like, I don't care. It's also another great line in this episode where he's like, time doesn't mean shit on an island. Like, it's a great, these liners that are in here. But of course he, with the axe, takes the axe and chops off the cuffs, letting him go free. Stay away from me and my son. Let's move on. We don't like each other. And then that's where kind of, Jin in this moment is now free, but like in that moment, he's understanding. He's like, he gets this loud and clear, whether he speaks English or not. This is a very clear message to Jin. What are your guys' thoughts on this interaction?
Oh, I liked it a lot, for Michael especially, and just to be able to again to stand up to the guy who just tried to murder him, and Jin has literally presumably killed people, and Michael's just able to stand up to him and actually make him afraid. And I really enjoyed this interaction. I'm excited for what will happen moving forward, even with that relationship of like, is Jin just going to be terrified of Michael the rest of the time?
Yeah, I really like, because earlier in the episode we see that he was a waiter, right? Like he's not this like mean, horrible person. So now you like take away his like built up defenses that he's gotten from this job from Sun's dad, right? Like he's handcuffed, he's in the sun, he's tired, he's like, he can't move, he has no weapons, and like, yeah, he's scared out of his mind then. Like this person who he can't communicate with has an axe, and like what's he gonna do with it? And like, this might be it, I might be screwed. Like he is reasonably scared, like within the context of that moment, but then like also in the grander context of like, oh yeah, like this person is like going back to their like basic roots of like the server at the party, like don't hurt me. Loved it.
Yeah,
it's like it's already going to be a scary situation, but like you said, Kevin, it's like imagine you're handcuffed to this thing and someone comes running at you with an axe in their hand, screaming at you, and you can't understand what they're saying. Right. I don't care how tough you are.
Like,
that's a scary situation.
You think about like if he took this job with Sun's dad, right? He's presumably being taught to like be like some kind of attack dog, right? Like he's like, so it's very easy for him to like run up behind someone and tackle them and hold them under the water. It's much different when they are now the one who like has to defend themselves but can't. And so like now you've taken that like those lessons away, and he's just left to be like, please don't hurt me.
Yeah.
He goes back to like you were saying, the waiter-esque.
Yeah.
And I mean, while we're on that topic as well, like I just feel so bad for Michael in this episode. Like the guy gets jumped, and we also get some really lovely scenes between
that's what I was about
Walt
to
and Michael.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, you were on the same page, Michael. But go for it. Take it over.
So like, we've talked about a lot where Walt and Michael weren't in each other's lives until very recently, and Walt's first reaction when his dad is attacked is, what did you do? And Michael's like, just nearly being killed. He's like, what do you mean, what did I do? I did nothing, I've been with you. And him saying, you don't know anything about me, and when's my birthday and all that. And then it comes back with at the end with Walt saying, when's your birthday? It's like this nice little through line through the episode of this slow growth of the relationship between Michael and Walt. Michael was great this episode. I loved him.
Yeah, I agree.
It's heartbreaking to like slowly realize like how much Michael cares for his son and how much he's not been allowed to care for his son.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, he even says in that moment, like, what did your mom tell you about me? Like, he's like thinking that
nothing.
She's just bashed him, and he's like, she didn't tell me anything.
Like, we know from watching what we've seen, like, he obviously really cares about Walt.
Yes.
Right.
And like, and we also know like through the dialogue, like that his birthday is like burned into his memory. Like, that's my son's birthday. Of course I know that.
Right.
But Walt doesn't even know his. Yeah, like, so like that is a lot to like poor Michael. Like, do I think Michael's doing the best job? No, I don't. But do I think that he wants to do a good job? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
A for effort.
Correct.
But yes, but also again, this is brand new. Like he had presumably gone on with his life, never realizing that he's gonna have a son, and then knock, knock, knock. Your like ex died. Come get your kid. So going to the end of the episode, obviously this is where even Saeed had mentioned live together, die alone, Jack, and like not 2 seconds later you're separating us. What are you doing?
Because Jack didn't think they were separating. Jack was like, just follow me. Everyone just do what I do.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader was not on their.
I'm the leader now. Do what
that
I
was
said.
not on their bingo card. Okay, they were like no. But we do see a massive group go, leaving just a few of them behind. We see that Charlie is there, Hurley is there, Jin and Sun have gone there now. Love that we get a Willie Nelson song. Love me some old country, like love it. And then we see the people around the campfire. We see Sawyer. We see Kate there. She's obviously very upset. Jack's upset in the caves. They get this whole like Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta Grease moment. And of course we see Shannon just laying there on the beach doing nothing as usual. But there's
what do you want her to do?
I want her to go put wood on the fire.
She
put wood on the fire. Why can't she grab up a log?
She had that good moment where she translated French, and then like that's been it. That was your contribution. Good thing there's a French speaker on the island before you.
Right.
Yeah, she got no speaking lines this episode.
Oh my gosh.
and everyone's still hating on her.
Thankfully, all right. Even though we never saw this woman except for in the very end, I can still trash on her. It's great. But again, we see where like Michael and Walt, like there's so many people. Michael and Walt are like, no. Michael says, I'm staying on the beach. I want to get my kid off this island. Again, all these people having different reasons of why they're going where they're going. But we do see a much larger group head over to the caves and a smaller group stay on the beach. Of course, when they get there, Locke's like, what is this? I thought we were just like transporting water back and forth. This was like my happy place. And now you just brought all these people in. And he's like, they're new tenants. Like Jack's ready to like start building up walls and like making this an apartment complex and collecting rent. But I love that we leave this this divide here where literally just last episode he's saying live together, die alone. And now we've seen this huge divide with a very small portion on the beach and a larger group going over here. I don't know what your guys are. Was there any characters that they focused on that you were surprised on where they ended up for you guys?
I don't know if there was any individual. It's surprising how many people did go to the caves though. Like how many were willing to be like to give up on the rescue part. I would, because like I need the water. Yeah. Right. Like in that.
You mentioned that once or twice.
But like, so like I obviously get people doing it, but like the fact that so many were like, F the rescue, like we'll go. Like that's surprising. So not necessarily an individual character, but the size.
I had one individual character that I think makes no sense why they would want to stay on the beach. It's the fugitive on the run. You don't want to get rescued. You got your way out of this. Stay on the island. Live with these people. This is your escape. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's waiting for you if a boat comes and they find out who you are is the first, class ticket back to prison.
See, now I will disagree with you because I think that this is exactly what's going through her mind, because we saw when she was in Australia and she's working the farm, she said her name was Annie. Rescue comes, they're just rescuing people. They're like, what's your name? Okay, like, I mean, think about it like in Titanic, Rose Dawson. She gave up a fake name right there. You know what I mean? So give the fake name, get back to wherever you need to go, and then she can hightail it out of there because they're not going to, you know what I mean? So I think that that's her rationale versus like, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. Like, you should probably just like live on the island and let bygones be bygones. But I think in her head, she's like,
do you really want to just like submit yourself to a life of living in the woods?
A beautiful island with all these amazing people. I'd love to live on Lost.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying I wouldn't. It'd be so much fun. But like there's all sorts of reasons why you might be like, listen, like we've been through this traumatic event. Maybe like my sentence will be commuted. Like all sorts of things that you could be like, you could still want to not be on the island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I would be where Sawyer is, but also, like I mentioned, I will be in the caves because I have to get away from the heat. So why doesn't she just go back and forth? This is like the obvious thing. Go for some sexy time with Jack. Go back to the beach where you want to be, but like you can kind of see
it's obviously a short enough walk that like.
Well, although Hurley did make short walk, they lied.
Right. It's obviously a short enough walk that you can do it multiple times in a day. Not a short walk. It's not like something you can just like, here to there and just like come back. But like you could spend the nights in the cave, spend most of your time in the cave, and then like listen, during the day you come out, you set up a fire to burn all night, maybe a plane going overhead will see it. And then go back to the cave. That's my solution.
Like turn on a nightlight and just
yeah.
Okay,
like build some kind of signal to anybody who might be flying overhead, and go stay in the caves.
Yeah. Anything else on this episode before I hand it back over to Jake to do our rankings? Does anybody else want to discuss anything from this episode?
I do really like that they use Hurley having his Walkman on the island to give us these cool endings with like music over the top of it, that they give you an in-show reason why we're hearing this music. And they did it in episode 3, I think it was, and then we get it again in this episode. I just think that's such a fun way to introduce that into the show.
Yeah,
it's like Star-Lord and Guardians, so like you get
exactly
natural music source. So all right, so we want to get to our episode rankings and our character rankings. So for characters, who are our favorite characters, I'll let you guys go and then I'll do mine.
Sorry.
I think Kristen's just gonna say Sawyer just because she's
Okay. I actually am gonna throw y'all for a loop. As much as I want to say Sawyer, and does he still? It's definitely not. He does still steal the show again with his like his Riz that he has all the time.
Bang Riz.
You guys started it. So I am going to chop it up and give this episode to Sun, because Sun,
solid choice.
We really got a lot of depth with her in this episode. We really see kind of every stepping stone that has gotten them here. Granted, yes, there's still questions to find out in their backstory, but we really see that love story, why she stayed. I mean, if you can get my 10-year-old to cry on a show he doesn't actually understand, but he's like here because it's like cool, but he's like, he felt that moment that he's falling, that you have to give this to Sun. Like, you have to give this to Sun because she was incredible in this episode. So that is why she is my favorite. Least favorite character, Shannon, what are you doing, girl? Like, I mean,
he's not even in this episode.
She was in the episode. She was in the episode. She was at the end, laying down, doing nothing as usual. No, I will be serious just so I don't give Michael a heart attack.
You didn't even have a line,
right? Because she's not worthy of a line. But no, to be serious, because she did not actually appear other than laying lazily like she does normally. Least favorite character in this episode, I think for me, has to be Jack. And don't come for me, anybody that loves Jack here. I feel like Jack he's supposed to be like I mentioned earlier, he is a doctor. He is supposed to, when you're a doctor and especially a surgeon, like, you have to think of every possible scenario that's going to happen here, and good, bad, ugly, all of the in between, A to Z. And he is one focused. He is tunnel vision. It's like he is not thinking about all these other people that he's claiming to be the leader of. And I just feel like that is a horrible character person, like whoever you need to be. That I just feel Jack falls very, very short here, and we are blatantly aware that maybe sometimes Jack is a little bit selfish and not understanding about other people's feelings. So that's why I'm picking Jack.
Okay.
Don't come for me. All right, I know.
No, I don't think Jack is particularly great this episode. He's a little wet blankety. But I'm still a Jack, so I'm not going to make him my least favorite. No, I think similar to Sun, I'm torn between Sun and Jin, but I think I'm going to say Jin is my favorite of the episode, because I think watching his descent from the nice, sweet, doting, he just wants to marry this woman that he loves, and he just hopes that he has the chance to do it. like into the grumpy, like horrible person, and then like that line of "I did this for us," and like he is this way because he still wants to be that. And then at the airport, he pulls out the flower, and like because he really is still that deep down, and like I said, like seeing like once all of the like all that stuff that he's been taught about how to be this mean tough guy is stripped away, like he is still a human who is scared. So I'm torn between the two, but you said Sun, so I'm saying Jin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Least favorite?
Shannon. I know.
I mean, besides Shannon, I might have to listen. Don't be mad at me. I think I'm gonna go with Charlie because listen, he is being manipulated by Locke. Like we are seeing that start to happen, and like
so good.
He's helping.
Listen, I'm not saying poorly acted. I'm not saying poorly written.
I know.
I'm just saying like as a character, like who do I like? Like I don't like when I'm watching this person like break down and like I don't like. Are there people who really struggle with addiction? Absolutely there are. Do I enjoy seeing like the person who is struggling with addiction like be manipulated by someone else? Like, no, I don't want to see that. So I don't.
So wouldn't that make Locke your least favorite and not Charlie? Make it make sense, Kevin.
No, I just like Charlie just like he needs to like have some personal growth. That's what I need to see from Charlie.
Okay.
Like he's on the downward right now. He is going down because he is so needy. He is like willing to be manipulated by other people, and like he's down here, and like I need him to like phoenix himself up.
Well, I'm going to throw everyone for a loop now because I was torn between three characters for my favorite character, and it was Sun, it was Michael, and it was Charlie. So I'm going for Charlie this episode.
Back up.
Charlie was fantastic. He had so many funny lines, and like I agree, like it should be Sun, but Sun's already been mentioned, so I'll give some love to Charlie. Like Sun's performance was Hyunjin Kim's performance was fantastic in this episode, but Charlie's the line about I'd guess C's, him being like, "Listen, you old git," when Locke's kind of trailing him, and like, "Oh, you've got an inside joke. How absolutely wonderful for you both." It's like Charlie was like. Hurley wasn't really in this this episode much. So Charlie was kind of the comedy character for this quite heavy episode. And I love Charlie in this episode.
Yeah, listen, it's not that I don't like Charlie.
I know.
You've said your piece.
Okay,
we're done with you.
Fine.
Continue, Michael. He's lost his power to talk right now.
Yeah. Honestly, for least favorite character, I'm really struggling to think of anyone that I really didn't like in this episode. I think all the characters were great. I think that's why I was struggling to picking Jack and Charlie. There wasn't really like a standout bad character in this episode. I guess because Shannon didn't have any lines. So I'm gonna go. Even though I went so hard on Kristin for picking Shannon when she didn't have any lines, I'm gonna pick a character that didn't have any lines, but it makes sense with the story. I'm picking Sun's dad. Because we see throughout the course of this flashback, we might not see him on screen, but I'm sorry, he's destroying this relationship that was so pure. And whatever he's doing for her dad, it is completely, made Jin into this cold, horrible person, and he wasn't that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm taking it back. I'm putting Shannon. At least she appeared. At least he's on. I'm taking it back. I'm going back to Shannon. Poor Jack. How could you talk me into that and then you pick her dad? He didn't even show up.
I thought about her dad as an obscure character. And I was like, no, he didn't have any lines. I can't do that.
Oh my goodness. I'm keeping it consistent. Shannon is at the bottom. Poor Jack. I can't believe I let you manipulate me there.
Oh my. Michael being
if we're allowed to go back, I'll go back and put Shannon there too. Fuck Shannon.
Okay, go for
it. Okay. Well, my favorite character, because he hasn't been picked, I'm picking Michael. I thought he was really fantastic. This episode had some great one-liners towards Jin and just like and Sun and stuff. So, and we got more between him and Walt of like what their relationship is and how much he cares for his son. So I'll pick him as
my son.
And
It's
then,
time again, Michael.
and then least favorite. Oh boy, I can't pick Shannon because she didn't actually say anything yet in this episode. Like, we haven't heard from her since 5. So, um, I mean, I can't blame him, but I'll go with Jack just because all he wanted to do was, get with Kate in this episode. So he
Can
kind
you
of was
blame him?
shirking his duties a little bit. So yeah, there wasn't anybody I disliked, but if I have
Yeah.
one, I'll go with Jack.
Well, I mean, again, Michael picked the guy that hasn't even like made an appearance, but so you can pick
Right.
Shannon.
Look at the rest of us. Look at the rest of us making like controversial decisions because we're like, oh well, we have to pick somebody, and he's just gonna cop out over here like, I'm gonna go with Sun's dad.
I mean, mine was definitely the best answer.
I mean,
Let's
it is,
move.
but they're not even on. You get. I'm just saying, you got on me because she didn't do anything, and then you're like the person that wasn't
I
even
did.
visible.
Let's rank the episode, Jake.
Yeah. So House of the Rising Sun. So Michael, where do our episodes stand right now for
So
rankings?
we have, I'm going to have to do this from memory. I'll make a note for next time. We have number 1 is Walkabout. Number 2 is The Pilots, Part 1 and 2. Number 3 is White Rabbit. And number 4 is Tabula Rasa.
That's what I thought.
I just know these episode titles at the top of my head.
Yeah, I was just making sure. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to make sure. Okay. So House of the Rising Sun. I think it's better than Tabula Rasa. For me, I still think that the top 2 are the most solid, but this is pretty good. I'll say I'll put this in 3rd above White Rabbit and Tabula Rasa. I think this is a pretty solid episode.
Poor Michael. Michael's going through all the emotions in this recap.
I mean, it's very close. I'm not mad about it, but I would say between White Rabbit and Tabula Rasa. I mean, I fought so hard for White Rabbit to be even higher the first week, so I clearly love that episode. But yeah, it's difficult because these episodes are all so good, but that's where I personally would put it.
Yeah, I do love White Rabbit. We talked about that. Like, it was hard to like where we were gonna put it. But I feel again I have to give it up to Sun in this episode. She really like brings this episode home. So I agree with Jake.
Yeah. The reveal that she speaks English and like the journey of their like the 2 of them like it's number 3 for me. Like it's not above the other 2, but it's number 3.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean we're arguing like point
they're
1,
like
point 2 between these episodes. They're all so close.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that is episode 6, House of the Rising Sun. So we'll be back for episode 7. So tune in next time on The Tribe of Nerds.
Fuck you, Sarah.
All right, here we are for our Tribe of Nerds after Jake spoiler section of Lost, episode 6, House of the Rising Sun. If you have not watched it, go away. Go. Shoo. Go. Are you gone? Good. All right, we're starting. All right, so House of the Rising Sun, Sun and Jin episode, Sun speaks English. Yay. Lots of other things in here. Michael, do you want to kick us off with you were wanting to jump into the gun of the Adam and Eve?
Yeah, so I mean, this is one where we get a huge mystery that's going to not pay off until the final season. So we do discover Adam and Eve.
The final season.
A few episodes where we find Adam and Eve, the bodies in the cave, which we're going to learn is the Man in Black's original body and mother. And I will say that Jack, I don't know if this is a continuity error or Jack just isn't really, good at detecting clothes, but he's like, these bodies are 50 years old. It's like, they're a couple of thousand years old, Jack.
So, yeah, he said those clothes, that would take at least 50 years for those clothes to deteriorate that much. So, as I was listening to that line, I was like, is this a, like they weren't entirely sure what they were going to do yet, so they said at least fit, so that, we know it's been 50 years or more, and so they weren't really sure yet? Or is this, an island thing of, the island kept the clothes from deteriorating that much over that. Like
It can do
I was like,
things.
I haven't paid attention to this before, but don't say anything out loud because Jake doesn't know.
You had me worried there for a moment. You started to say something. I'm like, rein it back in.
I don't even remember.
I also like to bring up Adam and Eve. Obviously, we saw the white and black stone again. Jake is picking up, like, obviously this might mean something. He's brought up yin and yang, whatever. But obviously that we know is because of Man in Black and Jacob and the light versus the dark, the good versus the bad, all of those things. So again, these little bits that you get thrown in here that you may not have picked up on in your first, second, 108th rewatch.
Can I tell you guys 108th? Can I tell you guys my theory of who Adam and Eve were, like, from about season 3 or something? I was like,
yeah.
I was convinced, and I think it makes so much sense. And if they went this way, it would have also been like quite a beautiful story. I thought it was going to be Rose and Bernard. When we start like getting characters flashing through time, and I was like, oh, they're going to go all the way back, and Rose and Bernard have just chose to live on this island. They're going to go back to the caves, and they're going to have their life together and die and be buried in the caves. And I think even Hurley says something in season 6 where he's like, dude, what if this is like our bodies and we go back in time again and we end up here? And I was like, it's gonna be Rose and Bernard, I'm telling you. So that
no, it definitely, it definitely 100%.
I mean, if it didn't turn out to be who it turned out to be, that would be a good payoff for that.
For sure.
But instead it was who it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, like, because this is a massive Jin and Sun episode, obviously we're going to talk about those pieces more when we get to those episodes. But also we know for a fact what Jin is doing. Jin is, he is the hitman, if you will, but he is a very shitty one because he doesn't want, because we've taken it back to who Jin is as a person before this.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we know exactly that moment. That was when he was supposed to go and kill somebody and he wouldn't do it. So then Daddy, Michael's least favorite character, was sending somebody else to show Jin how to do it. But then that Jin knows, oh, I'm in trouble if this happens. So he goes in and just wails on this guy, which is why his hand was so bloody. And he's like, I just saved your life. And then so he leaves. Yeah. But so we know that that's kind of where that exact moment is, where she's like, I have to leave now. And that was her turning point. But we also know that that was Jin still being good Jin and saving somebody's life, which is, again, we're not to do the right thing. Now. Yeah, we're not seeing that right now, obviously, from him. But I can't wait till we get to those episodes where we're starting to really uncover Jin more and seeing that he's actually still a very decent person, even though he's an asshole sometimes.
And like the Jin growth we're going to see throughout this show, it's so crazy. It always is, watching Jin in like early season 1, where he's so unrecognizable from this just lovable guy that we're going to get later on the show. And that relationship between him and Sun is one of the best relationships on the entire show, and they're so amazing together.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I mean, another spoiler too with them, I mean, it's like you mentioned, like, it's this growth that's about to happen, but also, like, we know from, and I don't want to go into too much because I want to save those for those spoilers, but we know that Jin's going to eventually learn English. He's going to be able to communicate in his own way and things like that. So when you talk about growth, like, we know that there's some good major things that, especially for this couple, that are going to be happening, where we'll of course talk about more when we get to those episodes. But I'm so excited. Like, I know all of us, like, it's so funny. I looked down because I was like, I have to see Jake's face when he's, and all of us literally, I watched all of you do the exact same thing. You were like,
yeah.
It's almost
I try because I have the ads. I try to, when I'm fast forwarding, to skip over that time, like, be a few seconds ahead so I can see something happen, and I can be like, wait.
Yeah. I'm always like 1 second ahead too, just so I know when it's
I'm usually like 5 seconds ahead, so I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but it was literally so funny that all of our heads, because I know when I looked down, you guys all started looking down at the same time. I was like, yep, we're waiting for Jake's reaction. Because that was a huge reaction, especially, and we were not prepared for that. But like we said in our other spoiler sections leading up to this, is that Saeed was like, she understands me, you know what I mean? Or when she made the errors of, when Walt says, what's that? And she's like, oh, it's toothpaste. Like, if you don't understand, why are you understanding him asking what that is? So, there's our spoiler to full circle moment here.
Right. It's funny how, like, this show has some spoilers that pay off in the next episode and some that don't pay off until like the third to last episode.
Right, like Michael mentioned Adam and Eve. Also, of course, since I'm the resident like number girl, her time was 11:15, 15 obviously being part of the numbers. I thought, like, again, I don't know if I'm just now going too much into numbers at this point where I'm recognizing but of course we also get Jack. They see that they were standing behind Jack and he's at the counter arguing, which we saw in Right Rabbit, where he says, I have to land in 16 hours. So that 16 also comes in there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's, again, maybe now I'm getting too invested in the numbers that I might be seeing them more so than I need to. But again, it's kind of crazy that it's like I'm rewatching again for the first time because I'm seeing these numbers come into play.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of like watching the show a second time, or however many times people have watched it. It's like seeing these things that you didn't notice. Also, one last thing I've got on Jin is this is where we see Jin get the handcuff on his hand that Michael frees him, but he ends up having that handcuff on his wrist for like well into season 2. Like he gets it removed so late. He's just a character with a handcuff from now on.
But also, like, again, this is the moment where, like, we've also talked about, like, people not going into the water to help people, like, all these things. Couldn't Michael, like, I know he had his moment, you know, and that was, like, his dramatic, like, is he going to chop my hand off or chop me, whatever. But, like, couldn't he just be like, Jack, give me the keys, or Saeed, give me the keys, or whoever has it, Sawyer, give me the keys. Whoever has the keys to these things. Like, couldn't we, like, be like, what's the point of this? Because now, what if you need them again? What if you need them again, spoiler section, for handcuffs? Now you don't have them anymore because you broke them. Just things like that. I'm like, you guys could have fixed this problem here.
It was about sending a message. But yeah, the handcuff would have been handy when a certain someone's going to get introduced soon that they could probably have restrained with those handcuffs.
Yep. Also, going into Michael and Walt's backstory a little bit, obviously, spoiler section for them. We know that, you know, Walt was taken from his dad as a baby because, you know, he didn't really fight for Walt.
But he like couldn't, right? Like I haven't rewatched this since last year.
I mean, yeah, she went.
She had so much money, like he couldn't. Like he was just like.
No, 100%. But I mean, I think that this is like to show him kind of now, like Michael has mentioned, not in spoiler sections, but just trying to relearn like being a dad, like how he's going to come into that. But also, I think we know for a fact here that he's about, when we get to the end of the season, how much he is fighting for his son. And he didn't really, like, as much as he could have fought and failed at fighting when the mom takes Walt from him, we don't really see that from him until, like, I feel like this bonding moment leading up to the raft is, like, where we're seeing that this bonding comes in where he's really taking over dad role. You know what I mean? So I think that I can't wait for Jake to see and witness that interaction become more.
Walt's mom is the worst character. The episode's going to be so easy when we get to that episode. Screw her. That's the most satisfying death in the entire show.
Not the most.
No, but listen. Her remarried husband, whatever he is, he's even worse.
He's going to be the worst. He's going to be the worst character because, like, he's like, she died and I don't want a kid anymore. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't want this creepy kid.
Right.
He sucks.
Yeah. Brian. Isn't his name Brian?
Brian, yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, so I mean, lots of different things. Obviously, the Sawyer, Kate, Jack, Saeed. Like they always say, it's the triangle. Michael, you brought it up. Like there was a little flirtation with Saeed too. I mean, even Sawyer brings up. He's like, "Oh, you got Captain Falafel in the dock."
I would have flirted with all three of them too. So like,
right? Like, I mean, go on, Kate.
not hating on her game.
I hate you, Kate, because like you're living my life. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot. We're gonna dive in more. Here's the thing: we're recording this and we're about to go watch the next episode. So much is about to happen in this next episode that we're gonna get, like, as we get Saeed getting hit with the head, like all these things. So stay tuned to that one because we're gonna come back and we're gonna spoil some stuff there too. But yeah, I feel like we're gonna get a lot more from these characters too. But we mentioned this in this previous episode. There's so many characters that we haven't even gotten any little bit about yet. I cannot wait. So
I can't wait for Jake's mind to be blown by some things.
Yeah.
Like anything Claire.
Right. all of it. So also we have not seen Claire in a while. Like, is the baby okay? No, I'm just kidding. All right. Any other
Is the baby okay?
Any other spoilers that we need for this episode?
I'm good.
All right. Well, tune in to our next episode where we go down into the moth. It's gonna be good.
Moth.
So, yeah, I'm excited for this episode. But we'll be back for that one and spoil some stuff for you guys there. So we'll see you guys there. Bye.
Bye.